Listen, Snow White. Me and you gonna tangle sooner or later. Did you hear what I say?
Why don't you stop playing with yourself, Willie? You ain't gonna do shit.
Hello everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to reflect sadly on the recent news of actor Richard Roundtree passing away at the age of 81 years old. The sad news was confirmed recently in the late hours of Tuesday the 24th of October 2023. It was confirmed that the cause was due to a long battle with pancreatic cancer. Now Richard was born on July the 9th 1942 and he graduated from college in 1961. And originally had ambitions for a football scholarship, but he left that in 1963 to focus on an acting career where he obtained mainly smaller roles, mostly in theatre. His career changed of course when he was cast in the lead role as Private Detective John Shaft in the movie titled Shaft, which was released in 1971. Directed by Gordon Parks, the movie focused on the detective being hired by a Highland mobster to save his daughter who was being kidnapped. Now originally a white actor was going to be cast in the lead role before director Gordon Parks decided to cast Roundtree in the lead role. And the movie was released to very profitable excess, grossing over $12 million from a budget of around $500,000. And it was a huge pioneer in the propelling of the blaxploitation movie genre, which spread right throughout the 1970s, where we would see primarily black characters, and the stories would cover crime, police procedural, gangsters, politics and also westerns. And Roundtree's role in Shaft reached huge cultural significance as being one of the first mainstream African American hero characters. Now yes, you had the likes of Sidney Poitier, who was already breaking ground with his prominence in the movies that he was playing, but Shaft was the first character of real independence and dominance. He wasn't a convict or a slave, he wasn't an individual who was constantly having to fight or challenge the higher white establishment for acceptance or approval. And make no mistake, these type of characters and stories that we would see the likes of Sidney Poitier playing were very important, especially in the period of the civil rights movement. But as a character, Shaft didn't need to search for acceptance. He got to walk around, be who he wanted to be, say what he wanted, and he could be his own man and personality, and he would still command a same amount of respect and position within society. And that sort of idea was extremely inspirational for many black audiences. Shaft really was the first mainstream black action hero, who had the confidence and the swagger, the charisma and the personality, and was allowed to exist in the mainstream movie entertainment. But he was a hero just taking on crime. He wasn't typically a political crusader or an ideologist. He took on villains in the same way that you'd see the likes of Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry or Charles Brosnan from Death Wish. And there was no shame about it. This wasn't played for laughs or parody or slapstick. This was a character with a certain amount of conviction that you could take seriously. And yes, over the many years, culturally, the character has been dubbed as the Black James Bond, due to his masculinity and especially his familiarity with women, while still being the protagonist in the story. But Shaft is much more of a progressive step of creating an original character for a certain demographic, which can prove to be far more impactful than just race-swapping James Bond, which is something that's being constantly pushed in today's culture, which I think is quite telling. If Shaft was simply race-swapped as James Bond back in the 70s, it would have felt far less important. And yes, the movie as well as the character has reached iconic status, as much as for Isaac Hayes' musical score, but especially it was Roundtree's naturally effortless performance that really drove the iconic image that Shaft would go on to be many years after the film was released. And Roundtree would continue to play the role several times after the original, with the likes of Shaft's Big Score in 1972, and also Shaft in Africa in 1973. He would return to the essence of the character in some sense when we saw the reboot of Shaft in 2000, which starred Samuel L. Jackson in the lead role and was also directed by John Singleton, and this role Richard played Shaft's uncle. He then returned further later on to the franchise in the Shaft movie from 2019, which was directed by Tim Story and featured 3 versions of the Shaft character, from Richard Roundtree's version to also Samuel L. Jackson's version of the character to the much younger portrayal played by Jesse T. Usher. Now, in terms of other roles, Roundtree also appeared in the slave television series Roots back in 1977. He starred alongside Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds in City Heat in 1984, and he had other smaller roles in the likes of Seven and also George of the Jungle. He would also make television appearances in much acclaimed shows such as Desperate Housewives, but sadly none of these performances were anywhere near as impactful as what he played in Shaft. But that doesn't take away in any means from the significance as a mainstream black hero character that Shaft presented. In many ways, Richard Roundtree's portrayal paved the way for so many similar roles that we would see in future decades, whether it would be the likes of Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, Carl Weathers playing Action Jackson, Wesley Snipes playing Passenger 57. The list really goes on and on and on, that we would see so many black lead characters in much more charismatic and proactive roles. Many characters who could share the same parity as mainstream white characters also headlining mainstream movies. So we should never underestimate the importance of Roundtree and Shaft, and it's definitely a performance and role of true significance and cultural importance. And leaving on that note, we should once again pay final respect and reverence to Richard Roundtree, who in the role as Shaft had huge impact and importance, who sadly passed away at the age of 81 years old.